All right, let's get started here. Today is April 27th, 2023. Today we are going to talk, this is the STS Adult Cardiac Surgery Database Quality Improvement Series, Decreasing Vent Times. This is our second webinar, and we're going to be talking about internal data review. It's just me, Melinda. Oh yeah, don't forget about the cat. So Sophie and Molly, they're doing good too. And I'll show you a picture if we have time at the end. They're coming out more. Okay, anyway, sorry. On the line with me today, we have Melinda, Addie, and Leanne from STS. No special presentations today from any presenters, but we do have a few planned coming up in the future. Like I said, we're going to go over the IQVIA dashboard reporting. I'm going to give just some basic information about what's found on each dashboard related to this quality improvement project. And then we'll go to a screen share where I'll open up the IQVIA dashboard and show you where all this stuff lives at and what you should be looking at. So the first dashboard I'm going to talk about is the participant dashboard. The participant dashboard, and I tried to highlight I think that this is probably good cliff notes or snippets of information just so you know what's living on each dashboard. And then we'll go over to the live screen and I'll show you what it actually looks like. So the participant dashboard, it's updated with each submission you make at your site near real time. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes after you upload or after a file is uploaded into the IQVIA platform for that data to populate onto the participant dashboard, but it updates in near real time with your site's data and the STS national benchmark. So anytime a site updates, that updates their data, that STS national benchmark is changing. This is called the participant dashboard. It is not risk adjusted or analyzed. It is strictly raw data. There's no exclusion criteria applied, nothing fancy. It's just what you're coding for these fields. And that data shows in raw, unadjusted, real time. You can view this data by a date range or harvest period. So you can select a date range if you wanted to just look at a month of data. If you wanted to look at a quarter, 3 months, 2 months, a week's worth of data. Or you can also view it by harvest period. So our last harvest 1, was OR dates through December 31st, 2022. You can view that just for that 36-month time frame. So January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. It is important to note though, when you use the participant dashboard, because it is updated in near real time, it's good for doing quality improvement projects, but when you're trying to compare the participant dashboard to the analyzed risk-adjusted dashboard, which we'll talk about in a second, those numbers may not match because the participant dashboard is updated each time you make a submission. So if you make a submission after harvest closed, it's going to be reflected on the participant dashboard. That update is going to be reflected on the participant dashboard. It is not going to be reflected on the analyzed risk-adjusted benchmark dashboard. The benchmark dashboard is just static data that was analyzed for data that was in the warehouse at the time of harvest close. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at these different dashboards. By real time, that data is updated in near real time, usually within 15 minutes. You can select date range or harvest periods. You can select your procedure type. So we can look at we'll look at isolated cabbages, which is what we're going to focus on for this quality improvement project. And it's also what you're going to find in this participant dashboard related to this project are extubated in OR cases, yes, no, or missing. And we'll look at all of these. Total post-op vent hours and prolonged ventilation. It does not include, you will not find your early extubated patients, which is the less than 6 hours. You're not going to see your initial vent times. You're not going to see your additional vent times, and you're not going to see your reintubation patients here. So all you're going to see is extubated in OR, total post-op vent hours, and prolonged ventilation. For this QI project, we're focusing on total vent hours. which ultimately will lead to, to hopefully a decrease in prolonged ventilation. But all of those that I just spoke about, including the early extubation patients and the initial reintubation type patients, all of those variables are important, and we're going to see those on different dashboards. So again, participant dashboard updated with each submission. It's not risk adjusted. You're going to find extubated and OR, total post-op vents, and prolonged ventilation patients here. This is a good place to track progress in near real time. So if you're doing near real time and you want to, starting a project out and you want to see how you're doing from last week to this week, it hasn't been analyzed yet. This is where you're going to want to check those, and you're going to want to look at usually at the total post-op vent hours, which will hopefully have an impact on decreasing prolonged ventilation as total post-op hours go down. Okay, participant dashboard, check. Next, risk-adjusted benchmarked dashboards. These are analyzed data. They're updated quarterly, and they display 36 months of data. All of our composite measures, all of our outcomes are now based on 36 months of data. They are reported in harvest periods, meaning when you go to select this, you can only select a harvest period. So our first harvest period we'll look at is harvest 1 from 2023. You are not able to break this down, although it will report out yearly or 36 months worth of data across a time frame. You're not able to break this down by monthly or quarterly or weekly. You're just going to see each calendar year you represented that makes up the 36 months of data. And we'll go over that when we go to the live view. It's good for quarterly check-ins, right? And what's really nice, what also is important is to remember that this risk-adjusted part of this dashboard, the risk-adjusted and regional outcomes reports, this is risk-adjusted outcomes for prolonged vent. It also has risk-adjusted prolonged vent for life group region and STS national benchmark, which is apples to apples, right? When we risk adjust things, we take into account the risk factors that the patients enter the OR with, and we adjust for those factors in determining the expected outcomes. And then we have your observed outcomes, which leads to the ODE, and also your odds ratios are calculated that way, are also included in the risk adjusted reports. So this is a good way to check apples to apples comparison and risk adjusted for like region and STS national benchmark. The benchmark reports, which is a separate section under this overall section of the risk adjusted benchmark dashboards, it's non-risk adjusted outcomes. It is analyzed. There are inclusion exclusion criteria applied. And here you're going to find we have different sections in this benchmark report that we're going to go over. The two most important ones for this project are the post-operative information and the morbidity mortality. Post-operative information, you're going to find total post-op vent hours, initial vent hours less than 6% or less than 6 hours. This is a percentage. Extubated in OR, reintubation, and additional vent hours. I don't have anything here. What do you see, Leanne Jones?
It's from the chat box, I think earlier. I don't know, it's just it's a black box.
Oh, you know what it is? It's the emojis.
The emojis, that's what it is.
Yeah, and they're not popping up on my screen. Thanks for letting me know. Let me see if I can make it smaller. Is it blocking any information right now?
Not right now, no, but
okay.
Not right now, but I'll let you know if it's blocking a slide or something.
Is that better if I just scoot it over?
Yeah, it's good. It's
okay.
Good.
Prolonged vent. Okay, so let me go back. Sorry about that, everybody. So the benchmarked reports, non-risk adjusted, you'll find these 6 things under the post-operative information. The reason I'm showing you these and put these in red is because you're going to want to know where to find this information. I've gotten quite a few emails already about I'm not able to find the initial vent hours less than 6 hours, or those patients extubated in OR. So it'll be nice to have this information handy. And then in the morbidity mortality section, that's where you're going to find the prolonged vent. You'll see these, again, they're not risk adjusted. It will show you the light group and STS national group. Not being risk adjusted and risk adjusted, I've seen questions come across. What should we be using at our site when doing this internal improvement project? I think all of the data is useful. However, if you want to be serious about this project, you have to monitor it closely and in near real time, right? In order to see if things are, to see how the process is working, if it is improving, or if you see a glitch in the process that you need to jump on right away. The near real time dashboard, the participant dashboard, is going to be your first line of defense against, right, of identifying those issues. That is non-risk adjusted data. It's raw data, not analyzed, no exclusions or anything applied to it. So you start with the non-risk adjusted data. Now, when we're talking about outcomes reporting and your composite and your star rating, we use the risk adjusted prolonged ventilation. That's one metric, one endpoint that we have included in the morbidities, and then also in the overall composite that is risk adjusted, star ratings, and it gives you a good example of how you're doing compared to sites that are similar to you in case mix, right? When you look at your light group and when you look at your light group. So in case mix, I think the light group, I probably misspoke, but when I say light group, we're looking at centers that have similar size to you, and if they are or are not a residency, host a residency program. If I were doing this project at a hospital, I would be paying attention to my participant dashboard and my benchmarked reports on quarterly basis. My participant dashboard, if I break it down to a similar time periods as the benchmark report, I'm going to see similar data. So that's why I think the participant dashboard is probably going to be the one that's used mostly here to show true data with risk adjustment, which paints a much better more accurate picture than the participant dashboard, because you don't have the risk adjustment applied there. I'm going to use the longitudinal dashboard, and I'll show you that. We're getting to that in just right now. So the longitudinal dashboard is another option on the platform, on the reporting platform. It's updated quarterly with each harvest. You can display this cumulatively starting from January 2017. That is the oldest data we have available in the warehouse to present. Excuse me, we have all of the historical data in the IQVIA warehouse. We put some of that data in storage, and we decided when we made that transfer to the new warehouse that we were only going to make version starting from January 2017 available. So for display purposes, we have data from January 2017 to the most recent harvest. That's actually 17, 18, 19. 6 years worth of data that we have available. And then with this next harvest, we'll have 6 years and 3 months worth of data available. You see a nice, you can see a nice trend line there. And then you can also look at it just at specific harvests. For this project, if I'm doing this project at my site, I think I'll be more interested in the cumulative data from January 2017, just so I can historically see how we have been doing at our site. There are various filters on this longitudinal dashboard: age, gender, number of reoperations, or if it's first operation versus reoperations. And then you can also filter elective, emergent, status, and a few other filters. You can view the data by year, quarter, or month. And we'll go through all of these features. We're going to go through each dashboard and we'll go through all of these features. And then prolonged vent is reported out. We report each of the endpoints out for of the major morbidities. One of those, of course, is being prolonged ventilation. Although this isn't your specific vent times, we will be able to see your prolonged ventilation. I think this is a nice report when we're looking at decreasing the prolonged ventilation, which will hopefully be a result of the decreasing vent times, overall vent times. Okay, before we go over there, I don't want to get lost. I don't want to get lost over in the website before closing out the slides. So let's just close out the slides real fast. Important dates, we're at April 27th, the quality improvement series. April 30th is the TVT public reporting consenting deadline. If you have not yet consented to public reporting, you need to consent by April 30th if you're interested in doing that. If you've already consented, even for previous years, you do not need to reconsent. Reach out to NCDR with questions on that. May 3rd, we have our monthly webinar. I will be reaching out to sites probably earlier than May 7th regarding the sites at risk for exclusion from Harvest 2. May 17th, of quality improvement series. May 19th, Harvest 2 closes. That's OR dates through March 31st. And May 25th, we have an quality improvement series webinar. I put it in a little bit different format here with the agendas. So today we're going to talk about using the dashboards. Wednesday, May 3rd was our monthly webinar. We have a report overview and preparing for Harvest Close. So I'll review the Harvest 1 reports that came out, and then we're going to prepare for Harvest Close, which occurs on May 19th. Wednesday, May 17th, Jennifer Boyce and James Mangerson reached out to me, and they'd like to present their quality improvement project where they have had 0% prolonged vent rates for over 2 years. So we'll talk to them on May 17th. It'll be similar to what Dr. Whitman provided to us with the Hopkins project last week. And they're going to go over and go over their process, implementation, how they've maintained this. Fantastic 0% prolonged vent rate, and be available to answer questions. Thursday, May 25th, anybody, yeah, it's not the chat box. I don't know. I'm gonna have to disable emojis and then we'll have to put them back up. Hold on one second. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't even know how to do that.
Yeah.
What about now?
No, it's still there. It's actually now it's in the middle of the page, in the middle of the slide. There you go. Well, that's okay.
Let me see if I can hold on. And now I can't find my controls anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that.
I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay. There you go. You've got Melinda Education, so you can still see it's just that last box, the last agenda item, Wednesday, September 6th. That it's.
Oh, well, don't worry. That's all the way out in September. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Thursday, May 25th at 1 p.m. Central Time, we have a quality improvement series that is open. If anybody has a quality improvement series presentation that they'd like to share on decreasing vent times at their hospital. Can you hear me? Grace says she can't hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Must be audio issue on her end.
Okay, anybody that has any quality improvement series or quality improvement initiatives related to decreasing vent times, and you'd like to share those successes or failures, please reach out to me, and I will be happy to put you on the agenda for any of these open slots. Wednesday, June 7th, Melinda will be educating us on our monthly webinar, probably on risk factors, I think. Wednesday, June 21st, Nancy Honeycutt is going to present. Nancy Honeycutt and her team. Nancy's one of our core group members. She's going to be presenting on their QI project on decreasing vent times and how they have maintained an early extubation rate of over 88% for the last 3 months. Super exciting information. Very proud of that for her site. On Thursday, June 29th, we'll have Diana Lejo back. Hopefully, I haven't confirmed the date with her, but I'm thinking she'll be here on June 29th. This is tentative, but she will be presenting on the IT side of the dashboards that Dr. Whitman presented. No webinar on July 5th. And then July 19th, it's open if anybody wants to hop in that day and share your stories with us. That's open. And Wednesday, August 16th is open. Wednesday, August 2nd, Melinda's going to educate us on something good. And Wednesday, September 6th, Melinda's going to educate us on something good. So did that work out okay?
Sounds great to me.
Okay, and then the conference, coronary conference, June 3rd through 4th, 2023 in Miami, Florida. Check it out if you're interested. It has a really great agenda on coronaries. Okay. Thank you, Diane. Yes, Diane will be here on June 29th. I just tentatively put you on the schedule. AQO this year will be virtual. So when we plan to be in person in 2024 with a smaller audience, limited seating. So stay tuned for more information on that. But for 2023, we will be in virtual. I'm going to shut down the chat box just so I don't miss any questions that people may have as they're coming in. Please be sure to put your questions in the Q&A. Okay, I'm going to stop my slides and we're going to go over to the dashboards. I have no idea where my, let me see if I can find it here. I have no idea. Oops. Where the floating meeting control box went. But Leanne, if you have it, I can't see the questions or anything. So let me do these. Let me go run through the dashboards, the 3 dashboards. And then
Okay.
if you could run the Q&A for me, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay. So to get to the dashboards, we're going to go to the sts.org, registries, STS National Database, access the database. This is your IQVIA login information. If you have not logged into the, my system is set up that if you have not logged in on a specific computer within a week, you have to log back in. So that's what I'm doing. And they send me a code through my email. I don't have access to the uploader, so this is going to be the first screen that I see. I'm going to go underneath operational reports. The first report we're going to talk about here is that participant dashboard. And let me see if I can pull my slides up here side by side. All right. Anything being blocked right now? Okay.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah.
All right. So on, as we talked about on the participant dashboard, it's updated each submission. It's a good place to track your extubated and OR total post-op vent hours and prolonged ventilation. It's going to contain your site's data and the STS national benchmark, which is updated in near real time when each site makes a submission into the warehouse or uses direct data entry, and you can search it by date range or harvest period. So the first screen you come to is the harvest period. You could do a reporting period, or you could put in date ranges. I am just going to look at a smaller time frame. I'll probably look at January of this year, so it doesn't take too long to load. And then in the procedures, we're focusing on isolated coronary CABG. You will see these 4 subsets of procedures: on pump, off pump, first reoperations, and first operations and reoperations. I'm just going to look at everybody. None of these cases are excluded from the PROC ID due to any of these subsets. So I'm going to look at the whole PROC ID, which is the CABG population. And I'm just going to look at all patients. I'm not going to worry about the COVID exclusion and that, because I'm looking at the January 2023 where we're not excluding COVID patients from analysis. So I have my time period selected. I have my procedure selected, apply parameters, and hopefully it doesn't take an hour to load. And then on the screen, as we had said, we're going to look at extubated and OR, total post-op vent hours, and prolonged ventilation. It's either going to be the extubated and OR, and the total post-op hours are under the post-operative section. The post-operative events, you could also say that could be renamed to post-operative complications. This is where you're going to find your prolonged ventilation. So after this loads, both columns have populated my site and the STS site. The site has not made any submissions before this period, but I can still show you where things live at. In the post-operative section, this is where you'll find the extubated in OR, yes, no, missing NA. And I think what's probably most useful here is to compare your site score to the STS score for the yeses. And just look at all of these, make sure, obviously check on your missing cases. Total post-op ventilation hours, we have it in need, median 25th and 75th percentile. So this is reporting out ventilation hours. The mean hours for STS is 13.93. 25th percentile is 3.37 and 75th percentile is 7.92. And I think that's it in this section, right? We have total post-op vent and extubated in OR. Now, I think you can make this screen bigger by maximizing visualization, so it's all on one screen and you don't have to do that terrible scrolling. And then you can minimize it by clicking on that. In the post-operative event section, this is where you're going to find your prolonged ventilation. Let's see how quickly this loads. My site, STS. Okay. I'm going to maximize this just so I don't have multiple things scrolling inside windows. Prolonged ventilation is here. 13.9% is the STS benchmark for this time period for sites that have submitted data. This is you might want to say that this is a lower end, but it's still quite a bit of cases, right? We're still just over 3,000 cases, so it might be a good enough predictor of where you could see this number fall when it's analyzed finally. So 13.9% prolonged vent, 86% no. So Jennifer's site maintaining an 88% prolonged vent time. She's doing better than the STS national average at this time when looking at this data. So these, again, this is your raw data. This is what you're going to find there. And then I'm going to go over to the risk adjusted dashboard. Risk adjusted dashboard, we can only select according to harvest. And one of the updates we've asked IQVIA is to include the harvest number after the timeframes. Harvest 1 always includes calendar year end data. So harvest 1 is January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. This is harvest 1 2023. And I'll select that and apply parameters. It just takes a minute to load. And I really wish I could find the I can't find I can't find the box for the Q&A, but
let's see.
and this is, I think that this is still loading. It's going to take just a minute here.
Sean said he found a solution for the gray box blocking view, turn off optimize for showing video option.
Oh, okay, I will in 1 second as soon as I find the as soon as I find the control panel that I seem to have hidden. See the control panel anywhere? Oh, somebody wants to talk to me. Maybe Cyrus knows. Go ahead, Cyrus, if you want to chat. I think you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the risk adjusted and benchmarked reports. This is where you're going to find reported and harvest periods. It's good for data, quarterly check-ins on your data. The risk adjusted and regional outcomes reports, which is this tab down here. Scoot that guy up. It's this tab down here, this section. We're going to focus on isolated CAB. We're not going to look at the subsets for this project. And you're going to find the risk adjusted prolonged vent, risk adjusted light group, risk adjusted region, risk adjusted STS national benchmark. The benchmarked report, which is this section of reports, will focus on the isolated cabbage. And that's where you're going to find your total post. These are all benchmarked outcomes. Your total post-op vent hours, that will be our big one. Your initial vent hours less than 6 hours, extubated in OR, reintubation, and additional vent hours. This is kind of the major section you'll be wanting to focus on because we do report out all of these things. The hope is for this project is that we will decrease our total post-op vent hours. By decreasing those total post-op vent hours, we hope to see initial vent hours go down. The percentage of initial vent hours less than 6 hours go up. Extubated in OR, maybe it will increase, maybe it won't. Reintubation, we do not want to see an increase in that. And additional vent hours, we'll want to see that go down. In the morbidity and mortality section of the benchmark report, you'll see the prolonged vent is reported out. We plan to see this go down as well with this project. You'll also have a light group and national STS national group benchmark numbers of non-risk adjusted. So we're really going to focus on this benchmarked report for this project. The risk adjusted report is nice. It's only going to provide us data on prolonged ventilation, which is hopefully one of the endpoints of decreasing vent hours overall. So let me show you where that's at. Under the risk adjusted and regional report, the isolated CAB section, you have your mortality risk adjustment. You have your in-hospital and operative mortality. Remember, even though it's outside of the scope of this project, in-hospital mortality is a subset of operative mortality. And we'll go over that in the May monthly webinar when we review the Harvest One reports. Complication risk assessment, we have the 5 major endpoints. Stroke, ventilation, renal failure, reoperation. We are looking for this project, the one that we'll hope to see decrease or improve is the prolonged ventilation. You have your odds ratio, your O to E's, which is your observed to expected, your risk adjusted rates, and your observed rates. Risk adjusted rate is the rate. Sometimes this can be lower or higher than your observed rate, depending on the types of patients you're caring for and those outcomes of those patients. More information is provided in the National Report Overview on calculating risk adjusted rates. Your observed rate is what actually happened. This should be the same rate that we're going to see in the benchmarked and benchmarked report. So you'll see for this, it's only available for calendar year. Actually, it's available for the 36 months of data reported out. So this just happens to contain 3 full years worth of data, which is all of 2020, all of 2021, and all of 2022. You cannot break this down any further on this report into quarters, weeks, nothing like that. All you see is your calendar year. You have your light group. Your light group is 2022, region 2022, and STS 2022. The one thing I want to double check on this, I don't know if this light group is, I want to say this light group, when it says light group 2022, it's the same 2022 here. So it's specific to this year. It is not the whole 3 years in analysis. Region 2022, it's the same. It's for the 2022 year, and STS 2022, it's the same. So that is the risk adjusted report. We're looking at prolonged ventilation, and you could, either do the risk adjusted or observed rate. Risk adjusted shows your, include your case mix into the equation, and expected versus observed versus expected outcomes. Okay. Then we get into the benchmark reports. And this is going to be all of those that we just, of those very many total post-op vent, initial vent less than 6 hours, extubated in OR, reintubation, and additional vent hours. These are all part of the section, under the section of post-operative information. Morbidity, mortality, we're going to find, again, the prolonged vent, which is just the benchmarked data, not risk adjusted. So isolated cab, I want to look under post-operative information. This is where I'm going to find all of those. And I don't know why it takes so long to load, but it does. And let me see if I do this. Okay. Vent hours, we reported out. So on the left here, you'll see these are all, oh, now it's going to work. These are all things that are considered to be post-operative in nature. Vent hours, except we do include extubated in OR, and we do include extubated in OR here, and total blood products in post-op and then intra-op post-op. Vent hours, we have mean, median, 25th, 75th percentile. You have your site's data for 2020, all of 2020, all of 2021, all of 2022. If you see an asterisk next to this year, for example, in Harvest 2 2023 report, you're going to see my site 2023. It'll have an asterisk, and then down at the bottom, it'll say the asterisk represents a partial year's worth of data. Because remember, we're only looking at, for Harvest 2 of 2023, we'll only be looking at the first quarter of 2023. So it won't be a full year, and we just got to note that. Okay, so we have vent hours, mean, median, 25th, 75th percentile. We have your site for the for those 12-month periods here. We have your like group, and then we have the STS. This is mean. This site's performance for 2022, their mean vent hours is 17.55, 3 hours, a little bit over 3¼ hours, or right around 3¼ hours higher than their like group, and 2 hours, a little over probably about 2¼ hours over the STS. So they definitely have, could potentially improve upon this, and hope to see it come down closer to the STS and like group mean. Their initial vent hours, this is initial vent, 11.16, slightly higher. So my guess is that we're going to see the reintubation as, yes, going to be much higher, or significant, higher than what the STS is when we get down there, because their initial vent hours are very close to the STS initial vent hours. Initial ventilation less than 6 hours. They have a 40% success rate in initially extubating patients less than 6 hours. STS is around 61%. Their like group is around 63%. This can be improved upon. With this project, we hope to see that improve, but it's, again, it's really driven by how the patient's doing, and as Dr. Glenn Whitman presented, all of the factors that go into getting those patients off extubation sooner, which includes intraoperative, decrease in intraoperative sedation and managing of those patients right when they come out of the OR. Extubated in OR, yes, 2% are extubated in OR. STS is right around almost 4%, 3.91. Like group is 2.8. So close to their like group, but still improved. It could be, could be better. Reintubation, yes. Oh, I was wrong. Look at their reintubation, yes, is 3.12. So maybe we're going to have to look at the additional vent hours. Maybe that's what's driving their overall vent hours to be a little bit higher. Reintubation, yes, 3.12. STS, they're actually less than the STS percentage, which is great, and a little bit higher. So they're falling right between their light group and STS for that. Additional vent hours mean, and here we go. This is the driver for that one. Their mean additional vent hours, it's greatly improved from 2020. They're still higher than the STS and the light group. So even though they have slightly less patients being reintubated than the STS, their time of those patients being reintubated is higher. So something that they can look into. So all of these things are here on the postoperative page. And let me see if I can get back now. There we go. Just got to click, click, click until things work out the way you hope that they do. I'm just going to go back to the benchmark tab, and I'm going to look at that morbidity mortality section for my prolonged ventilation. And it takes a second to load, but it should be coming soon. Prolonged ventilations, living under the pulmonary complications, it is here. Your site for 2020, 2021, 2022. Prolonged ventilation rate for this site is 4.68 for 2022. It's improved from 2021 and 2020. So great job. Light group, they're less than the light group and less than the STS. So even though they have overall higher total intubation times, it still looks like they're doing better with their prolonged ventilation. Remember, this is not risk adjusted. And that's it for that report. Let me go back now. So now we've went over the participant dashboard. We went over the benchmark dashboard. Our next report is going to be the longitudinal dashboard. And we're going to look at this. Remember, this is updated with each harvest. We're going to look at the cumulative data. And I'm not going to apply any filters. I just want to, I'm not going to apply any filters, but I will break it down further for you by month, so you can see how helpful this dashboard is. Even though it's only focused on prolonged vent time, it is risk adjusted data, and it gives it also a good gauge of how your site's doing for this endpoint, which is in the composite star rating. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here, go to the longitudinal outcomes and dashboard. It is risk adjusted. This is where I was talking about the cumulative versus the harvest. I like the cumulative just because it gives you a much better snapshot, a much better longitudinal picture of your site's performance. But it's really up to you. However, you could use both views if you wanted. And here we go. Just have to wait for things to populate. You'll see graphs and everything fill in, and then when it's ready to go, I think the participant numbers, usually one of the last things, maybe not. I think all the wheels stop spinning, so we're good. So the filters I was talking about are over here. I'm going to look at all years, but you can definitely cut it down if you want to make it shorter. And when I say make it shorter, I mean make this x-axis shorter with less historical data. The first thing I'm going to look at, though, is this PROC ID, and I just want to make sure I'm on isolated cabbage. We have all the other PROC IDs here. For this project, we're working on isolated cabbage. I'm going to look at everybody. I'm going to look at all ages, all genders, but I can certainly, if I was curious enough to see, well, is it the older patients or the younger patients, male or female? Well, maybe we're doing a lot of reoperations and those are what's causing it. I can certainly focus on those patients. So, but we're we're not getting granular like that for this project overall. If you wanted to do that at your site, you certainly can, to pinpoint where problems may lie. But we're going to look at everybody, all statuses, all operation, all first operation and reoperations. We're going to look at everything, and this is also interesting, and I'll talk more about this month filter and quarter filter here in just a few seconds. So I have my PRAC ID selected for isolated cabbage. Down here at the bottom, I have, of course, the main big one: mortality, stroke, renal failure, prolonged vent, reop, deep sternal wound. These are all endpoints, right, that we look at. For this project, we'll look at the prolonged ventilation greater than 24 hours. You just click on it. It takes a few seconds to load. You can further, again, remember I said this is broken down. This is updated with each harvest report, but you can break this down by quarter or month. Quarter is nice. It'll show you quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. But what I really think is fancy is the month view. And if we're doing quality improvement projects and we're expecting to see, and we're just starting off and want to make sure that we're not getting, our results are being consistent and consistently improving or not, this month view might be better. When Diane Alejo presents to us, she'll show you how they do it at Hopkins. And I think, when you can start really pinpointing deviations from what you're expecting in the outcome, the earlier you can recognize those deviations, the sooner you can fix whatever problem in the process is making that happen. So although quarterly or monthly is nice, when Diane shows her data, her process, you'll be able to see how useful it is to be aware of those issues more quickly than on a monthly basis. Do the same thing in the participant dashboard, where you can look at data, broken even by day if you wanted to, but it's only as good as the data that's in the warehouse. So if people aren't uploading data real time, it's not very helpful. Okay, so longitudinal dashboard, I have it broken down by month. I'm looking at just isolated cabbages. The first thing I look at is case count. This site, this is not going to be really helpful in our project, but it's just good information to have. And you can see here that they were pretty low the second quarter of 2022, or I'm sorry, second quarter of 2020, COVID related. And then you can see they slowly raise back up with their case counts. And this is going to scoot it down further. These slide bars are nice. If I wanted to do the same thing going to the right, I can get, I can look at that a little bit better for 2022 and break it down by quarter if I wanted. And then here's month. Case count pretty close to being, between 40 and 60 throughout the 2022 year. So then I'm looking at, and you can make these bigger by clicking that if you wanted to. The slide bars are still there, so you can use the slide bars. The other 3 graphs that we have on here, the first one is to the right here is the prolonged ventilation greater than 24 hours, the observed to expected ratio site. The black line is STS. STS ODE is always going to be one that is as expected, nationally as expected. That's what we determine is the rate right here. 1 is the ratio, 1 to 1. And then this site, primarily is staying under 1. They have a few times here where they are over 1, but primarily it looks like they're staying under 1 for the most part. Under 1 is good. ODE is less than 1 means your observed is less than your expected, which means that you're performing better than what's expected at your site. So that's good. If I was doing a quality improvement project, I'm looking at this post-report release, and I see that we're above 1. I'm going to want to investigate that further, look at those cases during that time period and see what the heck happened. That you're acting retroactively, if you will, not proactively, or yeah, I guess you're not acting proactively as you're looking at data that happened past, but it's still things to be aware of and things that you might be able to be actionable and something maybe you didn't catch in your proactive phase. And then this next tab is the prolonged ventilation greater than 24 hours. Your sites observed and STS is predicted. So your site, your observed site is here. What STS predicted is here. For this site, and maybe it's a little bit too much data on the screen. Let's see if we can make it a little bit better. It looks like a bunch of scribble, but Q4 of 2022, October, November, December. In October, your site had an observed rate of 2.63. The expected rate was 5.29. You're doing better than what your observed rate, than what STS was expecting to occur. So that's great. That means that the risk of your patients, all taking in account the risk of your patients, you're performing better than what the STS had predicted you would. I'm not sure how, I have to still think about how that's helpful in this project, but it just shows that you're performing better for this variable prolonged ventilation. The next one is risk adjusted prolonged ventilation site and STS. These are risk adjusted outcomes. So you have your site's risk adjusted outcome and the STS risk adjusted outcome. And it's just a comparison to show you where you're at compared to the STS. And it's going to take a second to load. Again, this is really nice. The longitudinal dashboard's really nice looking back retroactively. Or in planning a project, you have this data available that you can pinpoint some of these cases that may have caused you to be a poorer performer than what you would have liked. And you can look at those cases, do some root cause analysis to see why these patients were on the vent longer than what was expected. And then you can use that as a learning opportunity to look at your processes in place and how you could have avoided that, just any root cause analysis, how you could have avoided that had this patient been in your hospital now with what you know and implementing new processes. So this last screen is the risk adjusted prolonged ventilation greater than 24 hours. It's your site and STS, your risk adjusted outcomes. The site is performing better than what the STS is performing for the risk adjusted STS overall outcomes for these last 3 months here. Here they get a little wonky. So if I was this site, I would probably want to just see why this drove me above the STS and check out my ODEs to see if this is, significant. If it is, I want to dive into this case to see how we could use this as a learning opportunity to improve our process going forward. So that's where I'm going to end. And I wish I could get to Zoom. I don't know how.
Do you still not see the questions?
No, I hope there's not I hope there's not a whole lot.
There's about 29.
Okay, hold on.
I don't know if you want to work backwards since you just went over the longitudinal, because we have questions related to that. Obviously, the most recent ones entered.
Okay.
But
I'm like scrolling my mouse around hoping that the Zoom bar comes back up.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Is it over on another monitor?
No, I'm scrolling over on here too, not seeing it.
Huh.
That's what I said. Huh. Well, go ahead. You could, if you don't mind reading the questions, Leanne, I'll try to answer them the best I can.
Yeah, sure. So let's start with just kind of working backwards. Was there a COVID filter for the longitudinal dashboard?
No, but because that is risk adjusted data, COVID patients were excluded from, I believe, January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021.
Okay. And then could you, are you able to drill down to patient data from the longitudinal report?
I don't think so. Let's double check. I think you can only do that in the risk adjusted and participant dashboard. I don't think that functionality is here, but we can certainly double check on that.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I don't think you can.
I gotta wait for my total patient button to pop up here, I think. No, I don't think there's any drill down here. Okay, next question.
Okay.
I don't think there's drill down here.
Let's see here. Susan had a question. So you updated the longitudinal dashboards updated quarterly, but some graphs only go to Q3 22. She said, okay, follow up. I guess some do go to December, but don't include any 2023. So did you filter 2023 out? Or is my
I can answer that. So
Okay, yeah.
we don't have any 2023 data that has been analyzed yet. Our last
Perfect.
analysis included December 31st, 2022. With this next harvest, harvest 2, it
Mhm.
will contain the first 3 months of 2023 data. So when this dashboard gets updated, you will see the 2023 data in there.
Okay. Is it better to use mean or median in tracking?
I would say mean, because that's your average. Median's your middlemost point.
Okay. Please explain the difference between O to E ratio and observed and STS predicted risk. I think you did that.
Yeah, we did that, and we'll review that again on the monthly webinar that's coming up when we go over the national report, when we go over the Harvest 1 results. But in the meantime, I suggest that you read the national report overview, which
Mhm.
gives a great place to start with learning about that. And I'm not a statistician, so I can explain it the way I understand it, but this report overview was written by statisticians, so I would highly suggest reading that.
And also in the overview, Carole, somebody had asked about the definitions for like group and region.
Yeah.
That's in the overview as well, right?
It is. Like group
Okay.
and regions is in the overview, and you can also see which region is usually either going to be your state or a region, depending on how many hospitals or how many sites are included in your state reporting. If your state doesn't have enough hospitals to show a statistically to be statistically significant, then they're going to include your whole state, all the sites in your state, within a region. But that is also in the national report overview.
All right. Is it possibility to add a filter per surgeon on a facility? I don't think we don't do that.
No, we don't do that. We don't filter by NPI. You may be able to do that within your vendor software, but STS doesn't do that at this time.
Please repeat how to go back in the years in longitudinal graphs.
Say it again, Leanne. Sorry.
Please repeat how to go back in years.
Yeah. So when you open the graph, it's if you choose the first option on that, when you open the longitudinal graph, it says cumulative 2017 to current harvest. This will be your 2017 to current harvest. You can use these slide bars and it will scoot it more to the right, so you cut off the historical data. You can also do it. I think that was the only place. That's it.
Okay, perfect. Julia says thank you.
You're welcome.
So the longitudinal dashboard, it's not updated with each submission. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Correct, because it's risk adjusted data. Risk analysis is only performed per harvest, so it's updated 4 times a year.
Yeah, so they just how they wanted to know how, since it's not updated with each submission, how is it useful for real-time tracking?
It's not. That's what I said. It's not useful for real-time tracking. The participant dashboard is the only thing that's updated real-time.
All right, I'm going to go back up to the top because we had some questions come in earlier, and I don't want to ignore those ones that were submitted in the beginning. And I think you did this. Please explain when sometimes our risk-adjusted value is higher than our non-risk adjusted value.
Yeah, it has to do, and that is possible. You can be higher or lower, and it has to do with the risk of the patients entering the OR. I had asked this question to Robert to get a good way to explain it, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but I I can hopefully get that for you. Let me get something that I can translate from statistical language to something that's simplified for myself to try to explain it for the May webinar.
Got it. And a question, when will last week's kickoff video and slides be available?
Yeah, good question. So the webinar is posted. STS is undergoing some web designs, and we're not allowed to post anything new to the website. So they are posting it to the YouTube channel, which can be accessed. If you go to YouTube or you go to the STS.org registries, STS National Database, where they'll view live webinars, you have to scroll down to the bottom here. I'm going to ask marketing if we can scoot this up, but I think because we're doing a web design, we can't do any changes. Here on this ACSD webinar YouTube playlist is where
Oh, we lost you there, Carole. You there?
from the website itself. But in the meantime, I would, if you're on YouTube, I would subscribe to the STS National Database and pin these so you are notified when they're posted. The slides are also not able to be posted out, but they were sent out in an email earlier this week with the webinar reminder. Let me see if I can find that. Well, if you want to read the next question,
Okay,
Leanne.
perfect, Carole.
And I'll
Thank
see
you.
if I can find that. Yeah.
All right, so we're going back. So for the vent info, yes, 2017 is available. And this is not the in reference to the longitudinal dashboard. This is from the beginning of your presentation. For the vent info, yes, 2017 is available, but only 2019 onwards is available for comparison to peer groups.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Can we get 2017 through 2018 comparisons as well?
Well, the STS is there for 2017 and 18, but not for your light group. We only report out the last 3 years and for that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I think you covered this. It's their national benchmark times for stay, vent, etc. Yep, you covered that. Let's see, making sure I understand the morbidities are risk adjusted for star ratings, but what is shown is the unadjusted data. And that's when you were doing the unadjusted dashboard.
Could you say it again, Leanne?
Yep. The morbidities are risk adjusted for star ratings, but what you were showing in the beginning was unadjusted data.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I found the email.
Okay.
And let me see if I can get the website here and we can post it in the chat box.
Okay.
This is the email that was sent on Monday afternoon. And I tried to ask to highlight this out, but I don't know if folks saw it or not, or just ignored the bottom part of it. The slides are available here. Let me see if I can copy this hyperlink. And the YouTube channel is listed here. Let me see if I can. Oh, I think I can. I can't get to the chat box anymore, Leanne. Let me forward this to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry, everybody. I feel
No problem.
completely clumsy today with this.
Let me know if you're ready to read.
I'm ready.
Okay. With the prolonged vent times, what is the reasoning for it to count as prolonged vent greater than 24 hours total post-procedure instead of initial intubation time? Oftentimes we get the patient off the vent in less than 24 hours, but they have to be re-intubated for other reasons later in the stay.
Yeah, I think the prolonged ventilation for 24 hours after cardiac surgery, I think there's data to strongly suggest that the patient is at significant increased risk for bad outcomes past that 24-hour mark. Dr. Whitman showed this on his webinar last week. The 12 hours and then definitely the 24 hours. The intubation after reintubation after initial reintubation following initial extubation for procedures, if those patients are only intubated during that procedure, and extubated prior to leaving the procedural area, that does not count as additional intubation time. But how do we know that additional procedure, and how are we to expect data managers to know that additional procedure was not related to a complication or something else had happened following the initial index operation. These are all questions that we've had come up, and the reason why we have an umbrella of from OR to discharge anytime the patient's intubated. If it is outside of a procedural area, it counts as ventilation time.
Okay. Can you open up the chat box again so I can put that out to everyone? Right now I can only chat to hosts and panelists.
I can't do anything, Leanne.
Next question.
I guess I would say look in your emails for this
Yeah.
email from Monday. It was 4:31 Central Time, so 5:31 Eastern Time, 3:31 Mountain, 2:31 Pacific. Look for this email, and in this email, you'll see the links here.
Just search your inbox for STS National Database.
Yeah, sorry everybody that I'm not able to do that.
Okay, from Megan, on the participant dashboard postoperative events section, the prolonged vent report is not including all the patients in the denominators, so our rate is not accurate. Is this the case for other sites too? Perhaps.
Why wouldn't it be? I guess I'm confused. Why wouldn't it be including all the patients that are in the denominator?
I don't know. It sounds like perhaps that might be something for our QV to look into.
Oh, let me look. I know what I have. Let me
Okay.
see something. I hope that's not the case. Otherwise, that's not going to work, is it? Otherwise, I think that you can still figure it out by looking at the case count, but let me see something.
Okay.
There's a case count at the top of the screen, or should be a case count at the top of the screen, and you should be able to see that. But let me double check something here. Are there many more questions, Leanne?
Let's see, we've got about 20.
Yeah, I think we're at time too, right? So maybe we can go. I don't know if you have time to go for another few minutes.
Yeah,
and I don't know who's on the webinar with us still. So
there's about 227.
Okay.
Still on.
That's good. So let's see. I think what's happening is that this is looking at the denominator it's using is the in-hospital events, other in-hospital events, and it's using this yes as the denominator for the numbers below. But and it's reported out, we've reported it out both ways. We've reported it out that way. I'm sorry, we've only reported it out this way, but it could be reported out both ways. Let me pull up data so you can actually see this. Hold on. We'll look at January of 2022. See if that works. There, now we have data. The postoperative events, it's using the denominator of patients who had postoperative events to report out the occurrence for those below. The other way to look at this is looking at your total number of cases. And this is what we want to do for a quality improvement project, is looking at your total number of cases in those that had postoperative. So for this site, their total number of cases was 32. And you just have to know this. And thanks for bringing it up. Total number of cases is 32. Their prolonged vent is 3. So 3 out of 32 is what their total population prolonged ventilation rate is. The 3 out of the this 33%, this is looking at the 3 patients that did have prolonged ventilation out of the 9. So it's 33%. 3 out of 9 of their postoperative events were patients that had prolonged ventilation. Both numbers are helpful when looking internally, depending on what story you're trying to tell with your data. But for purposes of this project, we should be looking at the total population, which is your number of cases, and then how many times that's occurring. So let me see if we can work with IQVIA and how to move that along faster. We were looking at adding in both percentages here. So
Mhm.
in addition to the 33%, you would be able to see the smaller percentage using the total case denominator. Let me see where we're at with that with IQVIA. I know it's been in the queue on our elaboration calls. So thanks
Okay.
for bringing that up.
Perfect. Next question, would our mean hours under the participant dashboard be our main way to see our average post-op vent hours?
Mean hours on the participant dashboard.
Be our main way to see our average post-op vent hours.
Yeah, that's the one I would use.
Okay.
Total post-op vent hours mean is 19.7 STS. And remember, this is updated in real time with only the data you have in the warehouse at that time. So the sooner you get your data in, the more accurate it's going to reflect for that current time period. But you can go backwards. And you can go backwards and hope that that data is more inclusive of all of your cases.
All right. And I think can I find data under risk adjusted report for 2022 only? I think you answered that already.
Okay.
Can you discuss how the prolonged event denominator within the participant dashboard is based on the number of patients with yes to a post-op event rather than the total number of procedures during the time period? And I think you just discussed that.
I did. Yeah, I just discussed that one.
That was from earlier. Can you provide the sequence numbers for all of the ventilation metrics we will be using for this?
No, but you can certainly go into the data collection form and look at them.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Clarity on my question. Okay, that was Erica. You did that. What is the definition of AKI?
Acute kidney injury.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, it's different than renal failure, and we look at renal failure using, I forget what it's called, but I'm not sure the point of. I think we have to stick to questions that are related to prolonged ventilate or to the ventilation right now because we're over time. So
got it. Thank you.
Please,
And that was my
please feel free to email me if you'd like.
Yep. And my non-clinical self. Can you define again regional and lake group, which we already talked about. That's discussed in the analysis overview.
Yeah.
Will IQVIA be posting in the risk adjusted report the count for the MySite, like, and STS? They already include the region in the bottom.
Well, the STS is going to be your total number of cases. I think that's going to, let me double check on that. Can you send me an email on that, please?
Yep.
CKROHN at sts.org.
Yep. And that was from Julia.
Okay.
Please remind me again, does risk adjusted usually mean that less cases are considered? If so, is the number of adjusted cases there?
Sometimes, yeah, it could be less cases are considered, usually not significantly than what we're reporting in the participant dashboard. But it certainly could be that less cases are considered. And I'm not sure that we include an N here. The only place I've seen an N, I think, is the NQF reports. I'm not sure though. Next question, and
all right.
I'll pull it up
This came in when you were going over the longitudinal. Can you see the specific patient cases from this menu? And I don't think it doesn't.
No, there's no drill down on the
connection to
longitudinal.
IQVIA.
Yeah, there's no drill down on the IQVIA dashboard, but you should be able to find those same patients in the benchmarked report or in the risk adjusted report for prolonged ventilation. I think you can drill down in the risk adjusted prolonged vent section. Let's check that out too. And how about we just stay on for another few minutes, Leanne? I don't know how many more questions we have, but I probably want to use everybody's time wisely, and I know you're busy and we all got stuff going on. And my voice is getting scratchy.
Yeah, been talking for a while.
So isolated cabbage, this is going to be, sometimes this benchmark report might have a larger denominator, larger number of cases than the risk adjusted, but it should be fairly close. It should match, be fairly close to in the risk adjusted report should be fairly close to your observed rates, what's in the benchmark report. Are there any more questions? And well, this is pulling up.
Yeah, let's see here. I use median when I review data as it gets rid of the outliers. Vicky was wondering if anyone else did that. Here's another question. Are you ready for another? It looks like it came up for you.
Oh, I just want to show, here are the, so we're in the isolated cabbage section under demographics in the benchmark report, and here are the number of cases that were included. So you have your site for each year, you have your like group, and you have your STS counts.
Got it. Question from Sue Halsey. Would STS IQVIA ever consider creating ability to run rolling 12 months of data when just one quarter, example, harvest 2 results, only shows 3 months of data? Would be nice to have 12 months of data.
I got to think about that more.
Okay.
With that, I got to think about if we're ready, because we're already doing that in the participant dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can you email Carole?
Yeah, please, Sue. Thank you.
Yep. In the case count section,
yeah.
What is outcome mean? Is it like the fallout?
I don't understand the question.
I don't understand that question either.
Oh, maybe this is age years. Maybe you're seeing that as the mean median, and
right.
It's actually age years, belongs
Gotcha.
to age years.
Okay. Just a couple more questions. Where does the data coming from that are showing in the longitudinal outcomes dashboard?
Yeah, it's coming from our analysis, from our research center, from the analytics team, and it's coming from the, I think that they provide a separate report outside of, that's broken down outside of the risk adjusted reports, but it's from your data that was in the warehouse that was used for analysis.
Perfect. The last question from Leslie. I know, Megan, you were questioning your numbers, total cases 704, but it's only including 294 for that vent section. Can you just email Carole, Megan, regarding that? And the last question from Leslie, will the participant dashboard ever have an extubated less than 6 hours or greater than 24 hours in it?
As one report item?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make, I don't know that that makes sense.
Will the participant dashboard ever have an extubated less than 6 hours or greater than 24 hours?
Well, we have the prolonged ventilation in the participant dashboard. We have the extubated in OR, and we have the total post-op vent. But the less than 6 hours requires analysis, and this is a non-analyzed dashboard, so it won't ever, likely will not ever be populated in there. That requires IQVIA to do analysis, and that's not part of the purpose, right? IQVIA populates this with what's submitted in. Now, if we, in a vendor upgrade, in a software upgrade, which is not planned for the next few years, we don't have a date yet, but in that upgrade, if we had vendors calculate that and display it back to you, then we could have IQVIA display it. We can't have IQVIA do any analytics, so on the data that you're sending in. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. All right, Carole, I think we're good.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much, Leanne. Sorry about that.
No,
I'm glad you were on. I'm glad you were on to help me. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. I have no idea how to end the webinar.
Well, no, I can't end it either.
So I might just have to shut my whole computer off. But thanks everybody for joining. Feel free to email me any questions, and we will see you again on May 3rd for Melinda, and I'll be going over the Harvest 1 report and then preparing for Harvest Close. Thanks everybody.